Good morning, YouTubers. I haven't made a video in a long time. I haven't had much really to say of note. I'd like to make a video on some of the recent travel restrictions that are being, I don't know if they're being reintroduced, but some of the kind of travel restrictions now going on in Asian countries and parts of Latin America. This video isn't really going to be specific to any countries, but as I know a lot of people in Thailand, I have some kind of horror stories, which I won't really go into deeply since these aren't, I don't want to go into that too deeply, but for a little while it was looking like you could get on a plane and travel again. It appears to me that's not going to really be the case in most of Europe. There's been people going to Thailand and you have to quarantine, I think, for 7 days. You have to pay for your hotel. I forget all the names of the hotels, but certain hotels you can go to and quarantine. Now, if that's all that happens, that's fine. And the reason I'm mentioning all this, because sometimes people ask, well, why don't you do this or do that? And why are you waiting? Well, it's because of what potentially can happen if you get really unlucky. If you have a vaccine, or whether you have a vaccine or not, or whether you are positive or not for coronavirus, when you land in places like Thailand and some other countries, Thailand may be an extreme case of this. I'm not saying every country is like this, but in some Asian countries this may happen to you. You can fly into Thailand, you have everything booked, your special hotel, you have your $2,000 or $3,000 in cash or whatever, your ATM card, etc., etc. If you get a false positive but you're not really sick, you're not taken to your hotel to spend the 7 days. You're taken to a special, what some people are referring to as a concentration camp. You can look online and see these places, but these are government-run places, sometimes military camps, or in stadiums, and they're pretty awful looking. And you're separated from your family, like say you're in a family or you're with friends. If you're the one that tested positive, even though you don't have any symptoms, again, you're not taken to your hotel to quarantine, you're taken to the special place. And presumably you've paid for the hotel and you lost that money. I don't know. But if you don't get cash or Thai baht right when you get into the country, you're taken to a place where you don't have an ATM. You have to pay for food and medicine and whatever you're going to get in this place. It's not given to you for free. And you're separated from your family, your friends, and they cannot help you. If you have no one that speaks Thai that can help you, you're very, very much in a really bad situation. Now, you're in a situation with a lot of people who may really have corona, so you may get that. You may get polio and other things, and you may not have the opportunity to buy medicines unless you know someone who speaks Thai and is willing to try to look for medicine. Now, I'm telling you this because my understanding is there's a shortage of a lot of medical supplies and medicines. So even if you have the cash, you may not be able to buy your medical services. Now, some of the viewers might say, well, you get that $100,000 policy. That's true. That is true. And if that covers everything, and if they actually have the medicines to give you, that will be one thing. But my understanding is it's happening to people who have money and want to pay but don't have it. There's no medicines or anything. So that's why I mention all this. And for a few people that I'm aware of, they landed, they tested positive. They may have had the vaccine. I don't want to say. That may have triggered something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter though. They don't really care. They take you to this place. And if you have $50 in your pocket and that's all you have, you don't have much money to buy food and medicines or whatever you may need, and your family may not be allowed to go there and visit you, and then they would be stuck there. And then if you know someone who speaks Thai, and it's not your wife or girlfriend, they may not want to help you either. I'm just putting that out there for people who think you can fly in. If you fly in and you get a false positive, you're really, really in trouble. Now, Thailand is one of the more extreme examples of this that I'm aware of. But that's about all I want to say about that. But some of the other countries in Latin America are relocking down, or they're locking down in specific areas. I've heard Brazil is not letting people in, but I'm not really sure anymore. I don't really confirm everything I see online, but the only countries really for sure that are open in Latin America are Mexico, the DR, and Costa Rica. I think I'm forgetting another one. But Colombia and Brazil, I think, were open, then they're not letting people in. I'm not really sure. The reason I'm saying all this is because these things almost change on a daily basis, so you never really know. And some countries are closed off to people from the UK or in Australia. It just depends. Like if your nationality is from Brazil, there's a lot of countries you can't go to if you're from Brazil, you're from the United Kingdom. So there's that. Like here in Guatemala, if you're from Brazil, the UK, and South Africa, they won't let you in the country. Now here in Guatemala, if you can prove you've had the vaccine and you've had it for more than 2 weeks or whatever the rule is, I forget, they'll let you in the country. But I would just say, even at the airport, they're not really checking people that much. But like another person said, when you cross the land border, they don't even really care that much about anything. So anyways, I'm just putting that out there. It's easier to cross a land border than it is the airport. But even at the airport, I'm hearing where as long as your documents are, they let you through, but half the time they don't really even check. So many countries are kind of getting tired of all this COVID stuff. So anyways, I just want to post this video for people who are traveling. It appears to me that some countries, I'm just going to say some countries, are not going to really open up for another year or two. And it won't be easy to travel. You could end up spending $1,000 on tickets and then not being admitted to a country or being admitted to a really crappy hospital. That was happening in Guatemala like months and months ago. That's not happening anymore. You can just sail right in. Just have to have a COVID test and or vaccine. Now, as always, it's always up to the immigration control who they let in. And from what I've seen in my own personal experience, that just wave you on through. I had my documents. They looked at them, but they didn't seem, well, they don't seem too interested. It just depends, I guess. Anyways, that's the biggest reason I'm not making a lot of travel plans, because the rules are constantly changing. And Thailand was one of those places that was kind of opening up. And now, if you get a false positive, they're just putting you in these so-called, what they're calling concentration camps. Now, I realize that's an extreme thing to say, but for the foreigners who don't have corona, who are being put in these places, that's a very distressing situation to be into, especially if you're away from family and friends and no one can send you money. They can't communicate. Like, I don't even know if you can charge your phone in those situations. I don't know how safe they are. My understanding from the I don't want to say too much, but from the information I know, it's very, very difficult to charge a phone, very difficult to get medicines. It just depends how much money you have. There's just so many variables going on there that I don't want to comment too much, but I'm aware of certain things, and it's very distressing for those people. And you need to be really thinking about if you're going to go into the country and you get a false positive, what are you going to do? There's not much you can do. You're in another country. You don't really have rights as a foreigner. And this is not just Thailand. This is many countries like this. I don't want to go through a list of them, but a lot of people just they're not going to spend that kind of money and take a chance and get stuck in a government-run situation where you can't even go to an ATM machine to get money to buy food. And like I said, this healthcare is not free. You know, you're supposed to have that $100,000 policy. I'm not sure how that all mixes in there. So anyways, I'm just going to upload this video and wait for comments. Like if you have any information, or if you're familiar with some of this stuff, just leave a comment and what your opinion is on all this. I'm not really sure what's really going on. I do think, though, the governments are going to use this as kind of a weapon to weaponize things. Although that's a controversial thing to say, we can already see that in Western Europe. We can see it in the UK, where the Tories run the country, and they really, really have been doing some really, really awful things there to people. It's just really distressing and disappointing to see that. We're seeing the same thing in Canada, where the government there is more of a left-wing government. So It doesn't really matter if it's a conservative or liberal country. These things are just as bad, and whatever your home country is, you may want to stay there for a while till all this gets worked out. Anyways, that's all for now. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment, please. And tell me what you think about all these new recent, what some are calling new lockdowns or whatever.